So today we're going to talk about something that I just know is worth staying up late for or missing that meeting for if you're watching this at work. We're going to talk chicken bedding. Because chicken bedding is one thing I've had some issues with since I've had my chickens, just finding the right thing. Why is it even important? Well, I've wasted a lot of chicken bedding, and while it's not expensive, you know, who likes to waste anything? What I initially started with when I got my chickens was this flake style bedding. This is from the Supply of Tractor Company. You can get a bale of this for about $6. The flake is a bigger piece, chunks of wood shavings. This is almost like sticks of gum cut into quarters. It's about that size. Now it works good because it doesn't cake, and that's what a lot of producers that use this type of bedding like. They're not getting caking, it kind of stays loose, it stays fluffy. The bigger pieces don't allow it to aggregate into chunks. For me, it was causing a problem because I had all this loose bedding in there that I keep adding on top of the old bedding, and I get the little old chickens coming in there and they just want to explore, they want to scratch, and they're just scratching, and all the bedding's going out of the coop, not where I want. So I keep putting more and more bedding in, but the bedding in the coop isn't actually accumulating, it's all coming out the exit way where they go out during the day, and that's resulting in a lot of wasted bedding. So a few months back, I ended up switching to the fine size bedding. Now this is also from the Supply of Tractor Company, and this is a much finer bedding. This is more like you take a piece of gum and you put it through a paper shredder. It's a lot finer. What the fineness allows it to do is just compress down into cakes. Some people don't like that, but I like it because then what happens is the chickens walk on it with all the manure, it's pressing it down into cakes, it kind of becomes a more dense mat, and then the chickens are scratching, and it's just not flying everywhere, and more of it's staying in the coop, so I'm getting more use out of the bedding than I'm actually putting down versus this flake bedding, which I'm not getting the full usage out of it. I'm more or less getting rid of a lot of it, composting a lot of it at the end of the day before it's fully been used. So I'm trying to save a little bit of money here and ultimately go with a better product that works for me in my situation, and the fine has really been it. Since I've switched to the fine, a lot more bedding staying in the coop where I want it than flying out the door. But this is where it gets exciting because I'm actually trialing a new product for bedding, and it's not wood shavings at all. It's something you probably wouldn't even expect. So this is the new product that I'm going to be trying for bedding. What is it? Regular old garden variety peat moss. Now why would I want to use peat moss? Well, there's a few reasons why you'd actually want to do it. The ideal bedding that I've read about from a lot of sources out of the pasture poultry industry is actually peat moss because it's fine, it holds a lot of moisture, it can compress well, it's sterile, which is something you want. You don't want it to be a vector of disease, and a lot of people really like it for bedding. Now it's kind of expensive. This right here is 3 cubic feet of compressed peat. If you expand it out, it roughly doubles, so this is about 6 cubic feet of expanded peat. Compared with one of these bags right here of the flake style bedding, this expands out to 5.5 cubic feet as well. So let's call them equals. Now this 5.5 cubic feet of fine bedding here from the Supply of Tractor Company only costs about $5 or $6 a bale. This sphagnum peat moss at my commercial garden supplier around here, this costs about $17. It's about 3 times as expensive. So given that, why would you use it? Now one case would be if birds were your livelihood. If you were raising a bunch of chicks, pastured poultry, and you were having a lot of problems with birds dying in the brooder, and you were tracing that down to manure buildup or manure load, something like that, well then maybe I can see the case for justifying going to an all peat-based bedding. The cost there is worth it because you're trying to produce adult birds that you can later sell, and if they're dying in the brooder, that's no good. So if you can cut down death in the brooder by using something like this, then it justifies the cost. But for me, again, this is hobby level. I'm not at a commercial level. So what's the justification for using this? Well, this is where we need to kind of zoom out now and look at the total usage of this bedding. Because one portion of this bedding's life is spent inside the coop. The other portion of this bedding's life, as it decomposes, is in the garden beds. Because what I ultimately do with all my used bedding is I take it and spread it out on my garden beds, put a layer of compost over it, and then just plant a new cover crop on top of it. It works really well. Some people may be thinking, oh my God, all that wood, what about all the nitrogen lockup? That's not good. Well, I've never had a problem with that, and I'm just planting cover crop on it, a lot of which has nitrogen fixers in it, things like peas and bell beans. So I've never had a problem with it, and the chickens are just grazing it. So I'm not too worried if I get the optimum cover crop or not, but I'm really thankful to have the organic matter that the used bedding adds to the soil. So knowing that all my used bedding goes out into my garden beds here, what I want to do is start introducing some manure inoculated peat into my garden beds. I can use peat to break up some of the clays that I have in my soil. They're a little clay, more clay than I would want, which has its goods and has its bads, but I want to loosen it up a little bit. One way to do that is to add organic matter in it, and one of the pieces of organic matter I want to add into it is peat. And so my thinking is, by using peat as a portion of the bedding that I use in my coop, it's a way for me to start getting peat into my beds, and it's really peat plus nutrients. There'll be some biological activity happening on the peat from the manure, and there'll be some actual nutrients from the manure in the peat, so it's not just going in its sterile peat. So how I'm going to play this is about 1/3 of the total bedding that I'll be putting in my coop will be peat. I'm going to try this for a while, see how it works. The other 2/3 will be the fine bedding from Supply a Tractor Company. That way I can save costs, get the benefit of peat in the process. So here we are, the first test introduction of peat into the coop. Just a light dusting all over the existing bedding. I also put some in the nesting boxes up there. It's pretty clear from doing this, a bale of peat would go a long ways. Unless you're adding peat as your primary bedding source, it's going to go a long ways. So the cost factor in here being 3 times as expensive might not be that big of an issue. The big question will come down to, does this actually add anything, or is this just a waste of time and money? And I'm okay admitting that it might be that, but I at least want to give it a try, test it out first. This is really an experiment. I can't say how well it's worked in the past because I haven't done it in the past, but I have read a lot of pasture poultry producers do use peat for bedding, so this isn't some exotic crazy idea that came out of my head. It's actually something that came out of the pasture poultry industry. I'm giving it a try to see how it works. I'll keep you updated on results. This is just one of the many things I'm trying to do out here, is see what works and see where we can kind of push the limits and try new things to get benefit from the systems that we have. In the case of the bedding, it's not just thinking about one part of the bedding's life, meaning just in the coop. I'm also trying to think, where does the bedding go after the coop? That's in the soil. So by adding the peat to the bedding, that's another benefit to the soil, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to do here, is build up my soil, deepen my soils, create a biodiversity of microbial life in my soils, and I think introducing this peat is one way to help move that process along. Have you ever used peat as a bedding? If you have, let me know how it works. Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.